The way it works is we have like a main board, and this just all depends on like what your goal is too. So like
Sure.
obviously the football players, they're doing like football players, wrestlers, like power athletes, people like that are doing kind of their own programming. But like uh, the main population, so to speak. Like we have board workouts, so those will be like the advanced workouts. So you don't get to do those until you go through like 3 actual phases of training. So the first phase is like our baseline phase. So that's just a lot of really simple movements that are really hard to like fuck up, so to speak. So
Right.
like pushing the sled around, kettlebell deadlifts, body weight squats, push-ups, rows, different stuff like that. So they're going through like 4 weeks of just the basics, just teaching, pulling, pushing, bracing with the abs. So, getting basic core work in with that. And then, after 4 weeks, they test, you know, whether they pass the test or not, they're going on to phase two anyways, if they've gone through phase one. And it's just all progressive in nature. So we slowly start adding in, different barbell movements, but barbell movements are like the final type of thing that we start adding in. Whereas most people kind of have that ass backwards, and that's where they start, is like with the barbell training, when they should really be starting with body weight training and stuff like that.
So you think really people should have that body weight foundation before going on to any of the barbell stuff?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you guys emphasize a lot of mobility in your gym as well, because you
Yep.
teach a lot of Olympic lifting and things like that, which takes a ton of flexibility and mobility. Do you do that every single day with people? Do you prescribe workout or mobility programs for them to take home? How does that work with you guys?
Yeah. We have the big three that we do every single day after a training session, and just targeting the hips. But so people always do the big three mobility after their training. But then depending on the person, the athlete, I'll usually prescribe them something. So some people have terrible ankle flexibility and
Right.
mobility, including me, and so they're going to be doing like 2 to 3 minutes, per ankle, some with some specific mobility stuff for that, upper back, shoulder mobility, different stuff like that. So yeah, it's we take a hard approach with it, with the big three that I call it, and then people kind of branch off from there, because you don't have to do, everybody's not going to be the same, so you don't have to do all the mobility stuff head to toe, because some people have great just natural mobility in their ankles, so I mean they don't
Right.
have to spend a bunch of time doing ankle mobility, whereas somebody else neat will have to do that. So but yeah, mobility is a huge focus, and especially when we start doing like more Olympic lifts, like you mentioned, mobility is like everything.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, so one of the interesting things, Travis, that you do with your gym, and a lot of people don't put the effort in to do this. You also do this with your online programs and your online coaching programs. Is you always set things up in cycles, very specific cycles. And I actually rarely see that except for in high level training facilities. Most gyms, boot camps, things like that, people are just kind of throwing workouts at you, like, hey, try this day and challenge yourself with that day. Why did you choose to go with cycles, and how do you go about scheduling and programming your cycles?
just go in cycles, because you need that structure if you're gonna get consistent results. I think when you get to a higher level, it doesn't have to be as structured, but for people that are coming into a program, they need that type of structure in order to progress ahead. So everything that we do in my gym, and then everything I do with my coaching clients and people like that, a lot of my training programs that I put out online are based around 4 week phases, so 4 week mini cycles, so to speak. And then what I like to do is like after that fourth week, or within those 4 weeks, we might so you have your main 3 weeks, and then that fourth week would be like a testing week slash like deload week. So we'd actually be going very, very hard early in the week, testing out on different movements, or doing different type of just fitness tests that are going to be pretty hard on the body in general. And then the rest of the week, we kind of take like a deload slash recovery, type approach. So A lot of body weight stuff, light kettlebell stuff, no loading of the spine or anything like that. So like no heavy squats or heavy
Right.
deadlifts or anything like that at the end of the week. That lets people kind of heal up a little bit, especially their central nervous system. Which if you're always lifting heavy all the time, you're going to tax that out quite a bit. So that's kind of the approach that we take. But I do cycles because it helps kind of organize the training. There are certain parts to the training that are more chaotic, which we do a lot with mainly like the conditioning, but like the strength portion of the training that we do is always structured and
Right.
progressive in nature.
Well, one of the things I see, Travis, in a lot of like online programs, again, in a lot of boot camps, is they just don't have any strength. There's no actual strength component. Everybody's really enamored with this metabolic conditioning, this Tabata, these intervals, high intensity, everything, but they don't realize that a huge percentage of their results can come from this strength training side. So,
Yeah.
tell me, just bounce your ideas off about that.
Well, when it comes to strength, like strength is like everything, man. Like strength serves as like the major base to like everything else. So if you're weak, it's going to be a lot harder to get like, faster or more explosive or more conditioned, depending on whatever your sport is. At the same time, if you're strong, if you got that strength base, and don't get me wrong, like I know some like really strong guys that are like shitty athletes,
Right.
but you know, having that strength is always going to be a bonus. It's always going to be you know a lot easier to build on whatever else you're trying to build. So when you have that strength base, it's going to be easier to get more explosive or produce more force. If you're stronger, you're going to be able to build your aerobic capacity, your endurance a lot better because you'll always have that strength to kind of fall back on. Whereas if you're weak, that's going to be like the break in the chain, so to speak. That's going to kind of put a halt on your results.
Yeah. Well, we talked about one thing before we started the call. We were talking about, kind of the metabolic conditioning versus, aerobic training. And then
Yeah.
we're not talking about like step aerobics or jogging. We're just talking about longer durations of work and getting your heart rate up for a longer period of
Yep.
time. What is your take on that stuff? Where do you kind of stand with all that stuff right now?
Me personally, like if you go back like a year and a half ago, 2 years, I was one of those guys who was like, screw long distance running. There's
Right.
no
I've
no
been there.
need to have it at all. And now that I've been reading more into it, having that aerobic base is actually a huge benefit because being highly conditioned aerobically is just going to help you recover a lot faster. In
Right.
between your workouts specifically, but you know in my mind, it's just good to have all that stuff, So be strong. You got to have that aerobic capacity as well. But I think there's a certain place where you can add that in. Now, if you're somebody that's like trying to get lean and you build more muscle, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they're out there freaking running every single day. Like
Right.
I just had a call with an athlete today who's interested in joining the gym. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I run like 5 miles a day. I'm in great shape." I'm like, "Dude, when you come in, you're gonna be like in for a rude awakening, And I think that it needs to be a better blend
Yeah.
versus just running. And of course, it's all relative to your goal. But I've had marathon runners in my gym as well, and a lot of times they're just scared. They think when they start lifting heavier weights, they're going to get all big and bulky, and then they're going to be slow, and then they're going to lose aerobic conditioning. Where actually, again, like I was saying, that strength serves as a base of support for that stuff. You're going to actually excel in those areas. And just to give you an example, like I had this gal, she's ran the Boston Marathon multiple years, and she was like stuck. She was like plateauing, and she came into the gym, and this girl was a workhorse. Like she got up to the point she was doing like 15, dead hang pull ups.
Wow.
She was deadlifting close to double her body weight,
Wow.
and
That's
she
impressive.
dropped her time like 10 to 15 minutes
Yeah.
in um, uh, her marathon. and she actually wasn't even running as much. I got her into more hill sprints. So she was still doing her longer distance running, but she wasn't just focusing in on that
Right.
because, I mean, that's another big mistake is people might think like, okay, I'm training to run a marathon, so I probably need to run a shit ton and just cut back on everything else. Whereas cut back on your overall long distance running, add in some strength training, add in some sprint training and some power training, and that stuff's going to help build, towards that aerobic training, So, it's just all about kind of blending and tweaking things, towards people's goals, so to speak.
Yeah, it sounds like you're just trying to structure a program that kind of provides all of it because, metabolic conditioning without strength, you don't build that engine size any
Yep.
bigger. And
Yep.
then metabolic conditioning without aerobics, you don't build that efficiency any greater. And all of those things play a part in this whole game of building like the ultimate workout program that gets you the best results. So that being said, how would you design it? Like if you were just to kind of give somebody over the phone right now like a basic template to follow, what would somebody look at? Like a 3-day or a 4-day a week kind of template?